Hey, this is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Aerialist podcast, now part of the Digitant family of podcasts. Happy New Year. We are back starting season 3. I'm so excited. Thank you so much to the listeners out there and for our community, because I could not start season 3 if you guys weren't also listening. So I appreciate you. And today we are going to start 2023 and season 3 off with a bang, because I have an amazing guest today. But before we get started, there's a lot of resources that I have. Aerial Rehab is going to open for registration just a couple days in January if you need a jump start for getting back into your practice. If you have either been pregnant or you took a long break or you had an injury, micro progressions to get you back to where you were from PT to the air, that gap in between. So that's going to be open for registration for just a couple days. Keep your eyes and ears peeled on that. And ongoing, roll it out, live virtual 60-minute weekly rolling classes. You do it with me. We get to see each other online on Zoom, and we take care of our bodies together. What did somebody say to me recently? They're like, torture is better in a group. Yes, exactly. And then the other really exciting thing I have cooking right now is Silk's One teacher training. So I am going to roll out a pre-launch of that this year in the spring, hopefully. And I would love to see it. If you guys have any interest, just let me know in the show notes. You can just add your email address so I can send you notifications. All right, guys, I'm so excited because today we have Serenity Smith-Forchion with us. She is the co-founder of NECCA and Nimble Arts in New England. NECCA is the longest running professional training program. She is a wealth of knowledge. She's also a mama of 3. Her kids are now grown up, and she's just like a complete, I learned so much from her, and I know that she has touched the lives of so many of us in this circus community. So I'm so excited to have interviewed her and to bring her to you guys. So let's get started. Okay, so Serenity, I actually your name's been bouncing around for this podcast for a while because we have so many. Obviously you've been in the aerial space for forever. I know so many people who have either a great relationship with you or have met you or have worked with you, and everybody says Serenity. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I personally don't know you, but I have so many friends who talk about you all the time. If you could give yourself an introduction of a little bit about it, your background, your family too, because this is all about mamas as well. And then I'll just jump in and ask you everything I want to know.
Certainly. So my name is Serenity Smith-Forchion, and I and my identical twin sister, Elsie Smith, have been in the aerial and circus realm since we were 16 years old. We discovered it late in life, and I'm putting quotation marks around that because that's a definition that changes depending on your perspective. And we did not have a background in any training, either dance or gymnastics. We actually grew up on a farm, so we were sort of fit and strong, but not trained. We used to love to climb trees. And then we had a chance to do circus when we were 16 at Club Med. We got to fly in a trapeze and sort of fell in love with it. And our love of working with kids and some exposure that we had shortly after that to some social circus really is how we got started in this as a potential life path. But I have to say, we were very surprised by it ourselves. Both of us had scholarships to university, and we thought that we were bound in that direction. But after a short stint at university, each of us realized that we needed a break from the academic, and it was circus that gave us that break. And then it was also circus that kind of took us in a direction of another career. And that was almost 30 years ago. So we've been doing this for a while.
So you and your sister are still are you guys business partners?
Yes, my twin sister and I own Nimble Arts, which is our company together that we founded when we left tour with Cirque Du Soleil. And then we also founded the not-for-profit circus school. That's the New England Center for Circus Arts. So that is not something that we own. When you create a not-for-profit, you kind of give it to the world. So we are employed by NECCA and still work there, but it is not owned by us. But Nimble Arts is our company together, and we are business and creative partners.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Okay, so yeah, I kind of knew some of that, but not all of it. With NECCA is known as like the longest running aerial school in the country. Is that correct from my understanding?
It is correct. It is the longest running professional training program in the United States. So there's other schools that most certainly were started before NECCA. And it's been wonderful to be a part of the network of all those circus school and communities. But we started the professional training program at NECCA more than 15 years ago.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, here's my big decision. I'm going to go back before I go forward.
Certainly.
Can you talk about your performance career? And then how many kids do you have?
So I'll answer both of those questions separately.
Okay.
So first, my performing career started when I was 18 years old. I was teaching at a performing arts camp that had a circus program that was very focused on the social circus of it, the empowerment for youth. And I was very interested in that. I had graduated from high school early. I had been at university for a year and a half, and I was a little bit at sea as to what I wanted to do with my life. So my entry into circus was really through the way that circus can be used as a medium to work with humans. But one of the people who I worked with was a professional trapeze artist on Ringling Brothers. And she's the first person who looked at me and said, you're pretty good at this, and you could also be a performer. And I kind of accidentally sent in an application to Ringling Brothers because they had a big turnover of their showgirls. And I don't know what possessed me to think that I could just embark on being a professional performer at Ringling Brothers, but I did. And I was accepted. And when I was 18 years old, I left university and started touring with Ringling Brothers Circus as an aerialist and an elephant rider and a dancer. So I really learned, let's just say, on the job. But from there, my twin sister had moved to Canada with a guy. And so she and I were not working together at first, but I toured the world. I went to Japan for a year with a flying trapeze troupe. I was not in a flying trapeze, but I was an aerialist with them. And I traveled the United States performing. I ended up landing in San Francisco working with the Pickle Family Circus, which was probably the most formative of my artistic activities. It was really amazing to be part of a theatrical circus. A few years later, my twin sister moved to San Francisco and we started actually building an act together. And from there, Cirque Du Soleil found us and we ended up touring with Cirque du Soleil for almost 5 years. At that point, my husband, when I signed a 5-year contract with Cirque du Soleil, said, at the end of this, we need to commit to having a family if we're going to have a family, because none of us get younger as time goes by. So in 2001, we settled in Vermont, where my father was living at the time, and started Nimble Arts and started a family. So now I have 3 children. I'm no longer married, so it's a single endeavor, but my twin sister and her husband, who do not have children, have been very instrumental in supporting myself, my continuing career, and my three kids who are 20, 16, and 13.
Oh my goodness. Serenity, what show were you in for those years?
On Cirque Du Soleil, my twin sister and I did the duo swinging trapeze act on Saltimbanco.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. And then 2001, you started Nimble Arts and NECCA in the same year?
So Nimble Arts was started in 2001, and it was the creative pot under which twin sister and I did aerial teacher trainings. So we're one of the first companies that actually formulated a teacher training that was progressive. And we traveled all over the world. We still do, teaching that. My twin sister is actually in Tennessee right now leading a workshop. And so we also created several touring shows with Nimble Arts and did a lot of corporate work. We started teaching classes locally, mostly because people were asking us. They would meet us and then they would say, "Oh, please, will you teach us a little trapeze?" And from this small occasional lesson here and there to a short summer camp, all of a sudden we found ourselves employing other teachers and growing a circus school by demand, not by design. So it really grew organically within the community, which was lovely. But a few years later, it was actually 2007 when we stepped back and realized that the circus school was outgrowing the capacity that Elsie and I had to run it, as well as Nimble Arts, which was what we considered our performing company, and then our teacher trainings. And it was there that we decided to apply for not-for-profit status and create the New England Center for Circus Arts separate from Nimble Arts. So it officially was born in 2007, almost exactly 15 years ago on December 14th.
Oh my goodness, that is an anniversary. That's amazing.
It is.
Wow. Okay, so you had kids in the middle of all this. So from the mama standpoint, you know, what's really, what my listeners like, not even like to hear about, but kind of need to hear about. Tell me about if there was a change in identity transition there, what that was like for you, what the nuts and bolts were like when it came to teaching and being a mom, and then also your body. 3 times, right. coming back. That is like, people just are craving more anecdotal information about that with people who did it successfully, obviously. So, because they want inspiration and they want to know what we've learned from that.
Yeah. So let's see where to start. So with all 3 of my children, I want to stress that I had no complications in pregnancy, and I was lucky enough to be able to stay very fit and active throughout my pregnancy. And that is not always the case for everyone. And I want to make it very, very clear that everyone's journey in pregnancy is very different. And if yours is different, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you or you're doing anything wrong. And it's really critical to listen to your own body, your own journey, and to not take any chances. So I was very, very lucky that I was healthy and fit. I was able to actually run throughout my pregnancy. I had very specific check-ins that I would do every day when I trained. So I would do a handstand every day and the back bend every day. And those gave me really good connections to how I was actually feeling. I had very little morning sickness. And what that meant is that when I gave birth, I was much closer to my fitness level than if I had had to take time off. And I think taking time off is really important for people when your body tells you to do it. So I want to inspire people with my journey, but I also want to make sure that when other people's journeys are different, that they don't feel bad or feel like you're doing anything wrong. So once I gave birth and I had no complications in any of my births, I had a lot of stitches. So there was definitely healing, but there weren't any medical complications. I'd also like to add that my mom is an obstetrician she specializes in high risk OB. So I'm very aware from her stories and what I've heard growing up that my pregnancy was very low risk, low impact on my body. The other piece is that I think that our society does not appreciate how brutal childbirth can be, and that we have to, as women, as mothers, we have to hold on to how much we need to do, let's just say physical therapy and rehab to be able to come back. And the people around us don't talk about it. It's not offered as part of your medical healing. They'll say, stay in bed, relax. And that's what you should do. And there are ways that you can do return to play very gently, as if you'd been injured after birth. So my personal journey was very easy. I was actually able to perform very, very shortly after each of my births because my journey was very easy. So again, I want to say I'm happy to inspire other people, but I also don't want anyone to feel like they're doing anything wrong if their journey is more difficult, because childbirth takes a lot out of you.
Serenity, and we can cut this out if you don't want to answer this question, but how old were you when you had your kids?
Oh, I am very happy to answer that question.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yep. My first child was born 20 years ago. I am about to turn 52. So
okay.
He was when I was 31. And then each of my children were born about 3.5 years apart. So then I would have been 34 and then 37. And when you're 37, you know, they call it what, geriatric?
Yep, they do.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, no complications, but I do not recommend waiting to have children. I recommend doing it earlier.
I mean, that's just such a hard question, you know, because people want to live out their professional performing lives. They want to perform as long as possible. For me personally, I was 42 when my bean was born. And I would have had kids earlier, but I went through a divorce. It wasn't the right guy. And then I found the right guy. You know, time just went on. But meanwhile, like the last show that I did, I was 41. Like the last recurring, you know, on and on, not just one-off show. Yeah. But I think it's challenging for you. Do you feel like had your husband not like sat you down and said, okay, we need to start this process, do you think you might have just pushed it off for a little longer?
I can say I'm sure I would have pushed it off longer because when you're in the thick of offered contracts, we don't know what it's going to be like in the future. Even if you hear someone like me say, don't put it off, it's very, very hard to know that that's something that you should do earlier for many reasons. Of course, you know, complications of pregnancy being one of them. I also hear a lot of people just saying, you know, I'm not financially ready. It's hard to know when is a good time. And I'm actually quite grateful that my ex-husband was like, this is the time, because he was 5 years older than I am. And another thing that had happened to me as well is that I had had to have shoulder surgery. And before then, I had never been injured. And I had this thing in my head that if I didn't train every single day, that my body would forget and I would lose everything. And having shoulder surgery gave me the understanding that I could come back from not training every single day. And that also gave me a little bit of hope that if I had a child, that I would still be able to perform on the other side of it. And so I want to stress that with people. Your body remembers the skills. It's like riding a bicycle. So once your body heals from the process of either surgery or childbirth, because that's what we're talking about, then you will remember how to do those skills. So to try to avoid that fear that you're going to have to go back to square one and start from the beginning. I don't recommend shoulder surgery to anyone, but it definitely gave me less fear that taking time off to have a child would prevent me from ever coming back. And I was able to come back and tour. I did many tours with my children. I created shows. I still perform now after having had to take time off each time.
So you trained through your pregnancies, and then you would come back after however long. So even though you didn't have complications, what did that feel like to take the time off that you did?
So I will share how much time I ended up taking off. And one of my advantages is that I was working at an extremely high level as an athlete and an artist. And I stress both of them. As an athlete, I was very regimented. I ran every single day. I had a very specific process of staying fit, which is very different than maintaining your work as an artist. And so I was aware of that just in my professional career, that was something that I had as my foundation. I was working at a very, very high level. So when I was able to come back after childbirth and perform, I was able to perform at a lower standard, but it was still a very high standard because my body was accustomed to much higher than that. So when I say that I came back after birth, with my first child, he was born on October 13th, and I was performing on New Year's Eve. That was very fast, and I never intended to do it. But after I came back from childbirth, my body bounced back very, very quickly. So I was able to do that. And it was for my own company. So I could have just replaced myself. It wasn't like I was signing a contract with another company where I wasn't sure whether or not I would be able to come back. So again, I want to stress that it wasn't like I was performing at my peak, but I was performing at a plenty high enough peak to do a New Year's Eve corporate gig. And I was very careful to change my choreography to match what was okay for my body. With my other two children, my son Quinn was born in July, and about a week after he was born, a Mexican circus festival reached out to my twin sister and I, and they'd had a last minute cancellation. And they asked us if we would go and compete. And I had already had a chance to climb up on a silks and see how my body was doing. I used silks as part of my rehab, even though it was a trapeze act that we were doing. And even though I did not at all feel like I was at peak, we were able to modify the act and go out on the contract. So with a 2.5 or 3 week old baby, we were able to go out. I also recognize that I have the support of my identical twin sister, and I brought my brother as my babysitter. So having family support and people around you who are aware of their part of it is also really, really critical. You cannot do this by yourself. And then finally, with my youngest daughter, Evelina, She was born in November, and I also performed a New Year's Eve gig. And I have to share this story. She was a newborn, of course, 6 weeks old at that point, and there was a baby white tiger at the event, born on exactly the same day as my daughter. And we got a picture of the two of them together.
Oh.
So again, right, like my journey is very, very different than necessarily other people's. And sometimes I hesitate to tell the story of how quickly I was able to come back, because again, stressing again, that journey is not going to be the same for everyone. And I actually recommend that people take more time, or anticipate that it will take more time, so that you don't feel bad when you don't just bounce back.
Yeah, you know who I see, and from what I hear, the ones that are a little bit more heartbroken that they're not back quickly, they're actually the hobbyists, it seems like. I don't know if you experience that from your students and such.
I think that's a really good point, that from my particular journey, as I mentioned, I'm an elite athlete. And so I had a lot more that I could rest back on. And if you're not an elite athlete pre-pregnancy, there's no reason for you to expect that you're going to be an elite athlete post-pregnancy. And so to really be generous with yourself about how much rehabilitation it takes to come back from birth is the most intense physical activity you will ever do.
I find that. And then with the other piece of it, did you have good, bad, challenging, not challenging experience with the identity of like, I'm a mom now, added to I'm a performer?
Yeah. I think another nuance of my own particular journey is that I had my own company, so that I could make decisions to bring my family with me, that I didn't need to get permission from other people. So I was in a position of power because of that. There were occasional times that I went out and performed longer term contracts with other companies, but because I was working at a very high level, as an award-winning aerialist who had Cirque Du Soleil on my resume, I could demand certain accommodations. And I shouldn't say demand, I never had to, but I could say, if you want me on this contract, I will be bringing my child and my babysitter. And I had to pay for that, but they never denied me a contract because I was a mother. I definitely had for the accommodations, and I had to be very cautious about making sure that I wasn't being a burden, but I was never denied a contract. Again, I also recognize that I'm in a position of power. I had several acts that were in demand. And if you are working at a lower level, like you said, the hobbyists, it's going to be much harder to be given that role. I think probably the harder place for myself was in my own adjustment to being distracted in a good way from motherhood. There were no leisurely hours at the gym. I had to be incredibly efficient about the way I trained and the way that I created. And that, even to this day, is really hard. I often feel very distracted, and that is hard to not have the luxury of just kind of wallowing around in your own training and your own creativity. So that is definitely an adjustment. I happen to be a very, very organized human being, so I was able to navigate that. But, getting up at 5 a.m. in order to go for a run, in order to train before my kids woke up, I couldn't imagine doing this if I wasn't naturally that much of an organized human being.
Serenity, now that they're a little bit older, do you feel like that creative space, that time for creation has kind of gone back to what it was? Like, do you have those hours and you can just kind of immerse yourself in it? Or does it still feel like when they're younger?
I would say now that they are older, I definitely have more time for myself and to focus on my own creativity. I don't have to feed them all the time. For example, my 16-year-old is going to a career center program where he's learning to cook. So it's wonderful. Those shifts in how they are able to take care of themselves more. I think one of the challenges is as they get older, I also am getting older, and the projects that I've created also have gained their own momentum. So my other babies, my creative projects of directing and writing shows, the New England Center for Circus Arts, and also my own company, Nimble Arts, have also taken off. So some of it is just how to carve out time for myself in a busy life, which is true for everyone, not just mothers, but it's certainly exacerbated by being mom.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a question I have, and it's mostly for me, but also for my listeners. So I'm 45. I'll be turning 46 next year. I started aerial when I was 30. So I consider myself like, thank you, older, but I was, a dancer my whole life and then started training like midway through my professional dance career. And now I have people saying, oh, but I'm starting aerial at 40, you start at 30. You had so much more time, So recently I kind of, I had to come back twice. I had a big injury and then I had a baby, and I do a lot of like, my body's not great at putting on muscle anyway and keeping it. So I fight with my body a lot. I don't have to fight with like my hip flexibility. My back flexibility is kind of stiff. So basically, I'm just like, is this train still going to go uphill? Like, am I going to be able to get stronger and more flexible from here? I could, yeah. But that age situation works against you. So at what point, or has it happened yet, where you feel like that's something that kind of like works against your training? And how have you dealt with it? Because you're a bit older than me, but not much.
Right.
Yeah.
Really interesting question. Separate from whether or not you've had a child is the question of age and how well you age. And I'm putting quotations around well, because defining well really becomes something specific to yourself. But I'm actually with Susan Murphy, who is in her 70s, and she is still performing as well. And we were just talking about that because with her, I am a youngin' still trying to figure out perform. And I think one of the things that I did not understand when I was younger, when I looked at older performers and thought, well, why don't they keep performing? Some of it is just desire. As we get older, we have different shifts in our desires. And sometimes it's not that an older person doesn't want to perform. It's that they have other goals in life, whether it's being more creative about the big picture, either directing a show or choreographing, or sometimes maybe you've performed for 20 years and you're a little bored with it. And there's no shame in that. There is a bit of a thought that I had when I was a young person, that I would look at older people and I was like, maybe judging them for not being a performer anymore. So maybe that's my own thing. I think the other...
Oh, that's so interesting. I feel like it usually goes the other way. That's what I was going to say, is that there is a challenge for older performers to be even offered an opportunity to perform. And
I think it's tied into this question about being a mother as well. Once you have a baby, there's an assumption that you probably don't really want to perform anymore. And so then you're just not asked. And definitely as a mother and now as an older performer, I am having to create my own opportunities to perform because the opportunities are not being given to me by other people. And I'm not sure it's about not having an older person on stage. I think it's an assumption that maybe I'm just not interested in performing anymore. And people aren't asking because of that. So I think there's that piece. I think there is also, I won't use the word discrimination because I think that's too strong. But I do think when we talk about diversity on stage, there is not enough attention paid to age diversity. And we've been hearing about that in theater for many, many years. We hear from actresses like Meryl Streep and Annette Bening saying there just aren't roles for us. If we want to perform, we have to write our own scripts. And I think that is definitely happening in the circus. When we look at stages, I really appreciate the attention that's being paid to having different bodies on stage, different shapes, different types, different genders, diversity in skin color. I am not seeing the same attention paid to age diversity, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it's something that's been on my mind a lot lately because I am in LA and it is like the Mecca of youth wins. And
yes,
it doesn't necessarily like hurt me emotionally because I wouldn't go back for any reason. Like I love being where I am, but definitely Serenity, I'll tell you the things that I've experienced lately. Two different things. And it's weird because both ends of the spectrum are happening. And it's really interesting to me. For example, I had somebody who I worked with 10 years ago who just adores me. And he had called me recently. He's like, we're doing this again. Took a breath. And he's like, I really want you, but people you've trained. Like, I want you, but in a different body. I was like, okay. Wow. So there's that. Oh. So that happened. And I think there's also an assumption there that I have a baby. I don't want to go on tour. And I would have turned that particular thing down. But, I always like, it's always good to be nominated, right? Like, it's always good to ask, even if I turn you down. And then on the other hand, recently, because I still have an agent here in LA and I still I went out for a Christmas dance commercial recently, and the breakdown was 30 to 50 years old for dancers, which was so cool to see.
Yeah.
Like commercial hip hop dancers. Yeah, that was cool because, on TV commercial, they want the older one and then the younger one and the kid and then the grandma, blah, blah, blah. So I've been getting called out for that commercially more than when I was like that more ingenue age.
Right.
Yeah. So that's happening. And then also, I got another audition and then I checked in with some of my students the next day in class. They're in the same category of, can dance and can do aerial commercially. And my agent didn't even remember that they could do aerial. Like, So because there's just so much information and things are quick, like for me, they have known that I've been doing aerial forever. And so it sticks in their mind. But for some of the younger ones that are just in their second, third year of training, it gets lost. I don't know if this is all making one point, but my point is that there is diversity in the types of responses I'm getting from people. And I think it's okay, but it's very interesting to me because it's a new world for me. You've had kids for a while, so it's a little bit longer, but yeah, it's very new for me.
Yeah. I also think that it's different on film in the Hollywood, LA, or commercial New area, because there is already that conversation about having diversity on screen. And like you said, they'll cast grandma and then the mom and then the kid. Whereas on stage for a touring circus, that is never part of the consideration. I have never seen a audition call for a touring circus show that said, we want a grandfather on stage. So I'm hoping that will shift in this conversation of having lots of different people representing lots of different worlds on stage.
I feel like if I went to a Cirque show and there was an 80-year-old man or woman doing like an insanely amazing act, that would be so interesting to me, actually. I would be enthralled by that, actually.
I think there's a couple of things. On stage, when you're doing 10 shows a week, it takes a really unique human to be able to withstand that physically when you're young, and then add to it also older. So I do recognize from the casting and the writing perspective that really narrows the number of people that you might have an opportunity to hire. I still hope it happens. So I think that's one of those nuances, that just the physical rigor of doing a tour makes it really hard. The other part where a lot of us get work is in the corporate market. And I think the corporate market could care less. They want young bodies up there, and they don't really necessarily care about having age diversity. I do want to appreciate that. I think that the corporate market is starting to want to make sure that they have physical diversity and, gender diversity, racial diversity. So I think that we are moving forward in that, but I don't think age diversity has even broken into the awareness of the corporate market. And certainly they wouldn't consider whether or not you've had a kid as being a consideration for whether or not they're going to hire you. So I think those of us who are mothers end up hiding that fact. It's not a selling point when you're trying to get a corporate gig.
Yeah, nothing is. Either you're in 100% or you turn it down. That's from what I've experienced, not being in a place of like having my own company and just in as a aerialist, getting a contract. The other thing that I've heard about some of my friends going through, I was never the type of aerialist that wanted to do contracts. I am in LA as a freelancer, and I'm more in the commercial side of things. But I do have friends who go all over the place and grab these contracts. And I have a friend that got signed for a contract. They trained her for 3 months. And then at that point, they did an MRI. They do it on everybody in that show. And then she was excused because her body showed signs of potential future injury. Have you heard of this happening on contracts?
I have heard of potential future injury being cause for dismissal. But
whether or not there was a tear already and it was small, but she was working through it. But I guess I'm bringing up this because your point on bringing somebody like an 80-year-old man to do a very character-based, act, it would, there are limitations around that. But then I'm already seeing, my friend who is in her early 20s have this potential shoulder thing and then losing a contract before it even started. That to me was kind of brutal.
Yeah, that sounds like it was very painful. I have seen people who didn't have contracts renewed because they were injured. They went into an audition with an injury or a pre-existing condition, and they were, not invited to be a part of that contract. And that's a really tough call. If your body is not able to withstand 10 shows a week as a benchmark, arc, then it's not fair to you to bring you out, set you up for permanent injury. I hope we all stay healthy enough to do this when we're 95. And you don't want to burn that candle really fast when you're 20 and then live with an injured body. So this is an athletic experience. It's really hard to know what is right to do.
Serenity, just one question before you go. I so appreciate this. You are on vacation, and also this lovely person that you're seeing this week. I would love to have her on the podcast if she wants to come on the podcast as well.
To connect you with her.
Oh, that would be amazing. So I'm gonna mute it while you answer this because she wants some attention.
Understood.
But Serenity, do you have any advice for the aerialists out there who are either wanting to be a mom, or already in it? Like, if you have any words of advice for them or words of inspiration for them, I would love to. I'm sure they would love to hear it.
Sure.
Okay.
So I was able to train throughout my pregnancy. And I think the most important thing that anyone who is pregnant and trying to maintain your personality as being an aerialist is that you truly listen to your body. When your body says it's time to stop, or a particular part of your activity just doesn't feel right, then stop. I've known people who've had to stop for 6 months or a year and who gained 80 pounds and were still able to come back to being a professional aerialist. So really listen to your unique journey. And I think it's wonderful to be inspired to stay active, stay fit, stay being an aerial human, whatever makes you happy, and also really, really listen to your unique journey.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you so much taking time out on your vacation. I will. Yeah, you want to say hi? You want to say hi to Serenity? Say hi.
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 I gotta have that cooking toy. Oh, my Christmas.
Oh, she's really excited for Christmas, obviously.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much to Serenity for carving out the time. It was right before Christmas, and she was on her vacation with her dear friend, who hopefully will be on the podcast as well, and her son, and she carved out the time to jump on a Zoom. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for being a trailblazer in our industry, so that the people coming, stepping into your footsteps and stepping into your very large shoes can have even more opportunity. And, you guys, you and your generation, you guys gave us a foundation. So we're so grateful for that. And my listeners, go to the show notes for all the stuff. So Aerial Rehab will open for a couple-day registration very soon if you need that little jump start, getting back into your practice if you've taken a break, or even if you just need like a little bit more motivation, it's there. And then Roll It Out. I hope to see you every week for that on Zoom. And then my teacher training that should be coming up in the next couple months. Just keep your eyes peeled. All right, guys. Thank you so much to Asa Watkins, sound engineer. Thank you. And to my listeners, I appreciate you so much. Season 3 is going to be amazing. We're going to have a lot of new guests, and we're going to bring back ones to do updates on and see how their pregnancies and labor went, and dive back into some of the stories of those amazing women. So, guys, thanks for being here. Give me a 5-star rating and a review. It means so much to me. It helps so much, much more than you think. I love you. And I'll see you guys next time. Over and out. This is Carrie, and this is the Expecting Aerialist podcast from Digitant Podcasts.